Hey everyone, how are we doing today? All right. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here with my friend Peter McGuinness from Chobani. And I was reflecting on Joel's invitation at the beginning of the afternoon to practice self-care. And so I'd like to set an intention with you for this afternoon. I have a colleague who I've worked with for the last 17 years at Fair Trade USA. Her name is Maya. She's 41. She has 2 kids under the age of 5. She is brilliant. She's a badass. She is a light among us. And she was just diagnosed with cancer. And in moments like this, we realize how precious life is. We realize how precious every moment is. We realize how precious the choices that we make are. You all have made a choice. You've made a choice to be here today. You've made a choice to join in community with other sustainability leaders. You've made a choice to try and make business a force for good in the world. And I celebrate those choices. And I think in doing that, we all honor those who are not here today. Our colleagues, our friends, our family. So that's my intention, to honor with you the choices that we've made together and to celebrate being in a room full of kindred spirits. Thank you. So, who here is chewing on issues right now of supply chain sustainability? Let's see some hands. Who's thinking about supply chain and sourcing issues? Okay. And who here is thinking about how to engage the consumer to support our sustainability journey? Raise your hands high. How to engage the consumer? Okay, so I think this afternoon, I think our conversation is going to appeal to you for both reasons. Peter McGuinness is president of Chobani, and we're going to talk about Chobani's efforts around supply chain and around consumer engagement as well. So Peter, I'm so excited to be here with you today. Let's start, just tell us a little bit about Chobani and why it's such an amazing company and some of the sustainability initiatives that you're most excited about right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little self-serving, but I'll be happy to indulge.
Okay.
I'll be happy to indulge you. You know, many of you may know the Chobani story. It's we're a pretty small, humble company. We have a immigrant founder. We started in upstate New York. We're now in upstate New York and Idaho. We're a yogurt maker, but we stand for more than what we make. And I think from the very beginning, Chobani has been on the right side of the trend and truth. Chobani's done the right thing, regardless. We're lucky enough not to be a private company and not be beholden to quarterly earnings and shareholders that force you to make short-term decisions. So we've been playing long ball from the very beginning. But I think when you look at sustainability, I think you have to look at sustainability in totality. And I think that is profit, people, planet. Hamdi and we as a company have given away a lot of our profits from the very beginning. And we're really, really proud of that. From the very beginning, we've had really good hiring practices, and we achieve we're a great place to work 4 years in a row, and we achieved a perfect 100 on a corporate equality index. Wow. And over a third of our workforce are immigrants and refugees. So I think that's a big part of that's a very sustainable, modern, current hiring practice that inclusion and diversity is at the core of it. And then there's the planet. And when you're a manufacturing company, you're never perfect. And I think the first thing you got to do is admit your imperfections and set yourself on a course. And we're not perfect. And that's why we're here today, to have an honest conversation. We're reduced energy by 16%, water usage by 19%. We have less than 1% finished goods scrap. So we've made progress. Got a long way to go. And we'll get into the stuff that we're going to go set out to do, some of it together. But when you're manufacturing a product and you're sourcing ingredients all over the place, you're going to leave a mark. And you want to reduce that mark as much as you can. And in order to do that, you have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. And so I'm proud of our honesty, and I'm also proud of a lot of the initiatives we have. But we've got a long way to go. And we'll talk about that. I think another tenet of Chobani is also just being honest and true. Yeah. You know, I'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Peter. So you have just announced a partnership with Fair Trade USA,
yeah.
our organization, to pilot and launch the first fair trade dairy standard ever.
Ever.
So what problems are you trying to solve in the dairy industry by partnering with Fair Trade?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And proud and honored to be partnering with you and pioneering, actually, because First USA and First Dairy.
Yeah.
Look, our primary ingredient, no surprise, we authentically make our Greek yogurt, so it's 3 cups of yogurt, milk to make 1 cup of yogurt. So we don't use thickeners and gelatin and things like that like our competitors, but I'll promise to behave today. So we use a lot of milk. And the dairy industry is in trouble. And Hamdi and I were just at the IDFA, a big dairy conference last week. And we kind of urged everyone to just level set on where the dairy industry is. Some of it is founded and some of it's unfounded. But suffice to say, it's in crisis. 20,000 dairy farms have closed. No one's talking about it. Why is that? Well, it's animal welfare issues, worker well-being issues, their inability to make money and profit and run a good farm. There are a lot of reasons. Fluid milk is down. Total milk is slightly up when you look at cream and cheese and ice cream. But it's in crisis. And then there's perceptions, too. And some of it's fair, some of it's not. I think most farmers are great people and really care about their workers and really, really care about their animals. But there are a few bad ones. And those bad ones cast a massive shadow on the industry as a whole. And that's just the reality. So there is a consumer stigma around dairy. Mm-hmm. So fair trade, and by the way, I could sit here and tell you how great our farms are in upstate New York, but I'm biased, right? And we're pro-auditing, but I'm biased. We need a third party to come in, totally objective, and get us to a higher standard in the dairy industry. It's not perfect. We can do better. And by the way, in doing so, the consumer will feel better about it, right? We'll talk about the consumer later. But the reality is the consumers actually think the industry is worse than it is. So we should be pro-transparency. We should be pro-more auditing. We should set ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to worker well-being. And fair trade is going to come in and establish that. Now, as a manufacturer, we're willing to pay more for that milk, right? So if we're going to hold you to a higher standard, we'll pay you more for the milk, and that money can go back into the farm and the farm workers. So we don't have another 20,000 farms closing. Yeah. In doing so, the perception of those farms will be better than they are today. And consumers might drink more dairy as a result of it. So this is a really good thing. We're doing other things beyond fair trade, but this is a big, big piece of what we're doing. And you bring so much credibility. And I'm glad that what you've done in other industries and on other continents, we're bringing it to the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we're working with World Wildlife Fund to reduce the the environmental impact. And we're also we have scholarships and grants and funds that we're opening up to farmers. So it's a 6-point holistic program called Milk Matters, of which fair trade is a seminal piece of.
So perhaps a bit of context for those who are not familiar with Fair Trade certification. Mm-hmm. Fair Trade USA is the leading certifier of fair trade products in the United States. We've been around for 21 years, certifying everything from coffee and tea to sugar and fresh fruits and vegetables, more recently apparel and home goods, and now, drum roll, as of end of 2020, dairy. Our standard addresses issues of wages and benefits, worker safety and health,
Yep.
which of course is a big issue in dairy, discrimination, and environmental impact as well. So if ever there was an industry where a pioneering pilot could have an impact, it seems to me that the U.S. dairy industry is one that is a great fit. And
For sure.
we're just so thrilled that Chobani is kind of breaking new ground. And you know, obviously our mutual vision is, can we create a model that kind of sets a new bar for the industry in terms of social and environmental performance?
And in doing so, destigmatizes it, rejuvenates it.
Yeah.
We're pro-dairy, and actually dairy delivers, you know, yogurt is a very nutrient-dense food. For $1 a cup, you're not going to get better quality protein and minerals and calcium in a $1 a cup of anything, right? And we want to increase dairy consumption in the U.S. Now, some people are lactose intolerant. We understand that. And through innovation, we think you can get there. And there's a lot of ultrafiltration going on and things like that. Then there's a whole host of people that don't eat dairy because they think the practices aren't where they should be. Mm-hmm. And in some cases they're right, and in some cases they're wrong. Yeah. So let's set the standard with an objective third party and be totally transparent out there.
Yeah.
So
Peter, you referenced the consumer a couple of times, and I know that our audience thinks a lot about how to enlist the support of the consumer to support the important work that we're doing across social and environmental sustainability. So how do you, and I know over your career, you've thought a lot about brand building and about consumer activation. So when you think about fair trade yogurt, what are your thoughts around how to activate the consumer to support this?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think two things. I mean, number one, activate your CFO too, because he or she, you know, doesn't get it. Sorry, I love CFOs. Look, sustainability is good for business. It's powerful in the supply chain. Sustainability and profitability and productivity are mutually inclusive. You know, too many people think they're at odds. They're not at odds. If you're reducing waste and energy and water use and your carbon footprint and your logistics, it's damn good for business too. So everybody just needs to get on this program and do it quickly and comprehensively and hatch your own plan. We have our playbook. You all will have your own playbook based on your business. So the first thing you need to do is engage finance folks. And then also engage your head of supply chain. So I don't know how many heads of supply chains are out there, but what is the head of supply chain evaluated against every year? They got to bring in more productivity because there's inflation, there's logistics inflation, there's people costs inflation. So you have to offset that inflation through productivity. So he or she, as your head of supply chain, needs sustainable solutions to increase productivity year in, year out. So everybody should be on board with this, right? This is not some left or right or young or old thing. This is a reality, and this is where we are. Second thing is, and it's beautiful, in today's world, consumers demand it. They will reward you with more sales the better they feel about your product, how it's sourced, how it's made, how sustainable it is. That wasn't the case, right? And you have to do it in your own way. We're not verbose about it, and don't brag about it. We have it on our website, we have it on our packaging, but we're not super loud and proud about it. You discover it. And again, everyone should do it in their own way, but you'll get rewarded for it because modern consumers, particularly young consumers, just frankly demand it and they vote with their wallet. And so look, you can increase your profitability and your sales at the same time by being more sustainable, and preferably by being more sustainable when it comes to the people in your company and the planet that you operate in and the communities that you operate in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The data coming out now on consumer demands and expectations is really interesting. Millennials and Gen Z consumers expect companies to do the right thing. They expect companies to do right by the environment, by the workers, and I think this gives us a glimpse of our collective future, right?
Without
if
a
young
doubt.
consumers are demanding that as companies we behave in a more ethical and sustainable way, this becomes table stakes in the future as opposed to a differentiator, which is really interesting, right?
Which I think that's okay.
Of course it
If
is.
sustainability becomes table stakes, the world's a better place.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's going. I think every day that passes, it becomes, I think, A, more viable to do, but B, more mainstream in terms of consumers demanding it and the practices that we practice. So I think it's moving in the right direction, and I think it's largely going to be driven by consumer choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So last question. What are you most excited about for 2020 in terms of Chobani and sustainability?
Well, we're launching a lot of products at Chobani, so I'm really, really happy about that. And we're also going to do a lot of things around child hunger and child nutrition, and we're going to try to eradicate this lunch shaming thing, which is absurd that this happens.
Yeah.
You're going to hear a lot about that from us. On the sustainability thing, it's really three things. We want to get fair trade done and establish that new standard in dairy. We think it's vitally important. We think dairy is in crisis. 20,000 farms close and no one talks about it. There hasn't been any articles or anyone talking about it. We want to really go into hit renewables hard. And then we want to be a zero waste manufacturer. We're not there. That is our goal. It's going to take investment. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take big admission around our weaknesses. And we're prepared to do it. And we've already set on that course. But these are the three main areas within sustainability we want to tackle in a big way in 2020 while we innovate and while we give back to the community. The other thing is people think it's a false choice. Well, I can either do good in our community or take on these sustainability initiatives.
Right.
That's BS. That's
Right.
total
You can do both.
ridiculousness.
Yeah.
You can do both.
You can do both. Peter, we're out of time. Thank you so much. You're an inspiration. Chobani's an inspiration. And thank you, audience,
Thank
for
you,
everything
everybody.
you do.